when a wealthy, arrogant billionaire, Alex Carter, crosses paths with a kind and resilient woman named Evelyn. Confined to a wheelchair, his world flips upside down. Her story of struggle and determination touches him deeply, leading him to question his values and transform his life. But what secret is Evelyn hiding that could change everything? Welcome to our video. My name is Mark, and today, I have an incredible story that will inspire you, move you, and maybe even make you shed a tear. This is the story of a billionaire whose life took a surprising turn after meeting a woman in a wheelchair. But before we dive in, I have a quick question for you. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoy stories that stir your emotions and keep you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and click the bell icon to stay updated. Let's get started. Alex Carter was a man who had it all. Or at least, that's what the world believed. At just 35, he had built an empire worth billions, complete with luxury cars, private jets, and sprawling mansions in the most exclusive locations. But beyond the glittering surface of his life was a void he never acknowledged. Relationships were transactional, and kindness was a concept he found amusing at best. One evening, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, Alex arrived at an elite charity gala hosted by his company. For him, the event was just another public relations exercise, a chance to showcase his wealth and perhaps gain a favorable media headline or two. The irony was not lost on him. He never cared about charity, yet here he was, pretending to. After the gala ended, Alex decided to leave early. His sleek black sports car waited outside the Grand Hotel, its engine purring softly like a lion ready to roar. As he slid into the driver's seat, he revved the engine, impatient to get home. As he turned onto a narrow street near the hotel, his headlights illuminated a small stall on the sidewalk. There, under the soft glow of a street lamp, a young woman sat in a wheelchair, arranging a few handmade crafts on a table. The sight was unexpected, a stark contrast to the glitz and glamour Alex was used to. Distracted by the scene, Alex failed to notice a sharp turn ahead. His car swerved dangerously close to the stall, coming to a screeching halt just inches from the table. The sudden noise startled the woman, causing one of her items to tumble to the ground. "What on earth are you doing here?" Alex barked as he stepped out of the car, his frustration masking the guilt creeping into his chest. He was used to commanding respect, and his tone reflected it. The woman looked up at him, her calm blue eyes locking with his fiery gaze. Despite the tension, she didn't seem intimidated. "I could ask you the same thing," she replied softly. Her voice was steady, almost serene, and it caught Alex off guard. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. He glanced at the fallen item, a small, intricately woven bracelet, and bent down to pick it up. "This?" he scoffed, holding up the bracelet. "You're out here selling trinkets?" "They're not trinkets," she replied, her tone unwavering. "Each piece has a story. And unlike your car or suit, they're made with care, not money." Her words struck a nerve, though Alex refused to show it. He smirked, tossing the bracelet back onto the table. "You know, you're lucky I didn't run over your little business. Next time, stay out of the way." But instead of getting angry, the woman smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that unsettled Alex more than he cared to admit. She picked up the bracelet and held it out to him. "Here, take it," she said. Alex raised an eyebrow. "I don't need your pity." "It's not pity," she replied. "It's a reminder. You'll need it more than you think." Her words lingered in the air as Alex stared at her, unsure whether to feel insulted or intrigued. Finally, he snatched the bracelet and got back into his car, speeding off without another word. As he drove away, Alex couldn't shake the encounter from his mind. Who was this woman, and why had her words unsettled him so deeply? Alex woke the next morning with an unusual heaviness in his chest. His penthouse apartment, perched atop the city's skyline, was bathed in sunlight, but the warmth didn't reach him. He tossed and turned in his bed, trying to push away the memory of the encounter from the previous night. That woman, her calm yet piercing words, the way she had handed him the bracelet, and that serene smile. It all played in his mind like a broken record. As he dressed for the day, Alex noticed the bracelet sitting on the counter where he had tossed it carelessly. It seemed so out of place amidst his sleek, modern decor, like a relic from another world. "Why am I even thinking about this?" he muttered, grabbing his gold watch and slipping it onto his wrist instead. Downstairs, his chauffeur waited with the usual morning coffee. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," the driver greeted, handing over the perfectly brewed cup. But today, Alex barely acknowledged him. The coffee tasted bland, his mind elsewhere. At work, Alex tried to immerse himself in the day's meetings. His assistant rattled off updates about new acquisitions, market trends, and an upcoming shareholders conference. Yet, through it all, Alex's focus wavered. His thoughts kept drifting back to the woman in the wheelchair. "Who even sets up a stall on a sidewalk like that?" he muttered to himself during a break. By noon, Alex had had enough of the distraction. "Clear my schedule," he instructed his assistant abruptly. "Clear it?" she asked, wide-eyed. "You have a meeting with?" "I said, clear it," Alex snapped, his tone brooking no argument. For the first time in years, Alex found himself walking through the city streets instead of being chauffeured. Dressed in an immaculate suit, he looked like a fish out of water among the hustle and bustle of ordinary people. Yet, he kept going, retracing his steps from the night before. He reached the narrow street where the encounter had taken place. The stall was still there, but the woman was gone. A man sat in her place, sorting through the same handmade crafts. Alex hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. "Excuse me," he said, his commanding voice startling the man. "Where's the woman who was here last night?" The man looked up, surprised. "You mean Emma? She's not here during the day. She usually comes by in the evenings after her therapy sessions." "Therapy sessions?" Alex repeated, frowning. "Yeah," the man replied. "She's been through a lot. That stall means the world to her." Alex stood there, processing the information. Therapy sessions? What kind of life had this woman led? His curiosity deepened, but he wasn't sure why. "Do you know where I can find her?" he asked after a moment. The man shrugged. "She doesn't talk much about her personal life. But if you come back this evening, she'll probably be here." Alex thanked him with a curt nod and left, his mind racing. The more he thought about Emma, the more intrigued he became. Who is she? Why did her words still echo in his mind? That evening, Alex returned to the stall. This time, Emma was there, arranging her crafts just as she had the night before. When she noticed Alex approaching, she raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "You again," she said, her tone light but curious. "Didn't expect to see you back." Alex hesitated for a moment, unsure how to start. Finally, he held up the bracelet she had given him. "This," he began, his voice unusually soft, "I can't stop thinking about it." "About you?" Emma tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Why does it bother you so much?" "Because no one talks to me the way you did," Alex admitted, the words surprising even himself. "And because I don't know why I'm here." Emma chuckled softly. "Sometimes, life leads us to places we don't understand. Maybe this is one of those times." Before Alex could respond, a group of teenagers ran past, one of them knocking over part of Emma's stall. She quickly bent down to pick up the fallen items, but Alex was faster. "Here, let me help," he said, his voice earnest. As their hands brushed, Alex felt an unexpected connection, something he couldn't explain. He handed her the last item and stood there awkwardly, unsure of what to say next. "Thank you," Emma said, her tone softer than before. "For a billionaire, you're surprisingly bad at pretending not to care." Her words struck Alex once again, leaving him speechless. He had come here seeking answers, but all he found were more questions. Alex couldn't get her words out of his mind. "For a billionaire, you're surprisingly bad at pretending not to care." There was something about Emma's calm yet insightful demeanor that disarmed him. He had spent his life surrounded by people who either feared or envied him, yet here was someone who treated him as just another person. Over the next few days, Alex found himself returning to Emma's stall again and again. Each visit was brief, and their conversations were light, small talk about the crafts she sold or the weather. Yet, beneath the surface, Alex felt something stirring within him, something he couldn't quite name. One evening, after the rush of passers-by had dwindled, Alex approached Emma with a question that had been nagging him. "Why do you do this? Sit here, sell these crafts?" Emma glanced at him, her hands busy organizing the bracelets on her table. "It's not about the money if that's what you're asking," she replied. "Then what is it about?" Alex pressed, genuinely curious. Emma paused, her fingers lingering on a small wooden carving. "It's about purpose," she said finally. "When you've lost everything, you realize that the little things, creating something with your own hands, sharing it with others, they're what keep you going." Her words hit Alex harder than he expected. For years, he had measured his worth by the size of his bank account, the cars in his garage, and the properties in his name. Purpose was a word he had long forgotten. He leaned against the edge of the stall, watching her. "You said you've lost everything. What did you mean by that?" Emma's hands stilled, and for a moment, Alex thought she wouldn't answer. But then she looked up at him, her gaze steady and unflinching. "I wasn't always in a wheelchair," she said quietly. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident. It wasn't my fault, but that didn't make the outcome any easier to accept. I lost my ability to walk, my job, and a lot of people I thought were my friends. The only thing I didn't lose was my will to keep going." Her honesty caught Alex off guard. In his world, vulnerability was seen as weakness, something to be hidden or denied. Yet here was Emma, bearing her scars without hesitation. "I'm sorry," he said, the words sounding foreign to his own ears. He couldn't remember the last time he had apologized to anyone. Emma shrugged, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Don't be. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we didn't know we needed." For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then Emma spoke again, her tone lighter this time. "What about you, Alex? You keep showing up here, but I still don't know why." Alex hesitated. The truth was he didn't fully understand it himself. "I guess I've never met anyone like you," he admitted finally. Different?" Emma laughed softly. "Different isn't always a bad thing, you know?" As they talked, Alex began to notice the small details about Emma he hadn't seen before, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about her crafts, the quiet strength in her voice when she talked about her struggles. She was unlike anyone he had ever known, and it intrigued him more than he cared to admit. Just as their conversation was winding down, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. A man in a suit stepped out, his expression cold and businesslike. "Ms. Emma," he said curtly, glancing at Alex with a look of disdain. "Your therapy session is in 20 minutes. We need to leave now." Emma sighed, clearly annoyed. "Always so punctual," she muttered before turning back to Alex. "Well, I guess that's my cue." As she rolled her wheelchair toward the car, she paused and looked back at Alex. "By the way, you never told me why you kept that bracelet," she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Alex opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, she was gone, leaving him standing there with more questions than answers. As the car disappeared into the distance, Alex found himself gripping the bracelet in his pocket. He hadn't even realized he'd brought it with him. For the first time in years, Alex felt a flicker of something he couldn't quite name. Hope, curiosity, perhaps even longing. But one thing was certain. Meeting Emma had already started to change him in ways he didn't yet understand. The next morning, Alex woke up with an unfamiliar feeling, anticipation. For years, his routine had been monotonous. Meetings, deals, and the occasional gala to show off his wealth. But now, his thoughts were consumed by Emma. He wanted to understand her, her strength, and the sense of calm she carried despite the storm she'd endured. Instead of heading to his usual office that day, Alex found himself back at the park. Emma's stall was there, just as it had been every day before, but she wasn't alone. A young boy, no older than 10, was seated on a small stool next to her, carefully threading beads onto a string. His laughter filled the air as Emma told him a story, her hands gesturing animatedly despite her wheelchair's confines. "Who's this?" Alex asked, stepping closer. Emma looked up, her face lighting up when she saw him. "This is Ryan, my neighbor's son. He likes to help me sometimes, don't you, Ryan?" The boy grinned and nodded. "Emma's teaching me how to make bracelets. She says I'm her best helper." Alex chuckled, crouching down to meet Ryan's eye level. "Looks like you're doing a great job." Ryan beamed before turning his attention back to his work. Emma smiled at Alex. "You're early today. Couldn't stay away, could you?" He smirked. "Maybe I just wanted to see what new insults you had for me today." Emma laughed. "Don't worry, I've got plenty." They fell into easy conversation, but Alex couldn't shake the image of Emma with Ryan. There was a warmth about her, a genuine kindness he rarely encountered. She didn't just exist, she lived, in a way he realized he hadn't been doing for years. As the day went on, Alex decided to ask her something that had been on his mind since their last conversation. "You said the accident took a lot from you," he began hesitantly. "But you also said it taught you lessons." "What lessons?" Emma looked at him for a moment, as if weighing how much to share. Finally, she said, "It taught me that happiness doesn't come from what you have, but from what you give. For a long time, I was angry at the driver who hit me, angry at the world for taking away my mobility. But then I realized that holding on to that anger was only hurting me. So, I decided to let it go and focus on what I could still do. Helping others, creating beauty from simple things like these crafts. It gives me purpose." Her words hit Alex like a bolt of lightning. He had spent his entire life chasing wealth and power, convinced that they would bring him fulfillment. Yet here was Emma, who had lost so much, finding joy in the simplest of things. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Ryan packed up his beads and waved goodbye, leaving Alex and Emma alone. "Why do you keep coming back?" Emma asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. Alex hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I guess I like talking to you. You're not like anyone I've met before." Emma raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile playing on her lips. "I'm going to take that as a compliment, even though it sounds like you don't meet very interesting people." Alex laughed, a genuine, unguarded laugh that surprised even him. "You might be right about that." Just as the moment seemed to settle, Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted. "What's wrong?" Alex asked, sensing her unease. Emma hesitated, then sighed. "It's nothing. Just some overdue medical bills." Alex's chest tightened. He wanted to help, but he knew Emma well enough by now to realize she wouldn't accept charity. She was too proud, too independent. Instead, he said, "If you ever need help, you can ask me. No strings attached." Emma gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thanks, Alex. But I've been handling this for a while now. I'll be okay." As she began packing up her stall for the evening, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's struggles ran deeper than she let on. And for the first time in his life, he felt an overwhelming urge to do something selfless. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. As they parted ways, Emma gave him a playful wave. "See you tomorrow, billionaire." Alex watched her disappear down the street, a plan already forming in his mind. Emma might not accept his help directly, but he wasn't about to stand by and do nothing. What he didn't realize was that his actions would soon set off a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. The following days passed in a blur for Alex, who was now determined to help Emma in a way she couldn't refuse. He spent hours in his office, poring over ideas with his assistant, Sarah. "Sir, are you sure you want to go this far?" Sarah asked hesitantly. Alex leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. "Emma's proud. She won't take direct help. But there's a way to make her life easier without compromising her independence. I need to do this, Sarah." He had no idea why Emma had affected him so profoundly, but the thought of her struggling while he lived in luxury made his stomach churn. For the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose beyond growing his wealth. By the weekend, Alex was ready. He decided to visit Emma's stall earlier than usual, his heart pounding with nervous energy. But when he arrived, the stall was empty. No colorful beads, no sign of Emma or Ryan. Confused and slightly panicked, Alex asked around. A nearby vendor frowned. "Emma? Haven't seen her today. She wasn't looking too good yesterday, though." Worry gnawed at Alex as he searched for her address, something Sarah had discreetly found for him days earlier. He arrived at a small, modest apartment building. The peeling paint and broken mailbox told him all he needed to know about Emma's financial struggles. He knocked on her door, the sound echoing in the dim hallway. After a long moment, the door creaked open. Emma sat in her wheelchair, her face pale and tired. "Alex? What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with surprise and exhaustion. "I was worried when you didn't show up at the park," he admitted. "Are you okay?" Emma hesitated, then sighed. "Just a bad day. Happens sometimes." Alex stepped inside, his eyes scanning the tiny apartment. It was neat but bare, with little more than a worn-out couch and a small dining table. The weight of her reality hit him like a punch to the gut. "Emma," he said softly, "you don't have to do this alone." She gave him a tired smile. "I've been doing it alone for years, Alex. I'm used to it." But Alex wasn't willing to accept that. "What if there's another way?" Before she could protest, he handed her a small envelope. "This isn't charity," he said quickly. "Think of it as an investment." Emma frowned, opening the envelope to find a letter inside. As she read it, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Do you want to help me start a business?" she asked, her voice trembling. Alex nodded. "You're talented, Emma. Your crafts deserve more than a stall in the park. I've already arranged for a small storefront and some resources to get you started. The rest is up to you." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "Alex, I can't. This is too much." "It's not," he insisted. "You've inspired me, Emma. You've shown me that life isn't about what you have but what you give. Let me give this to you." Emma stared at him for a long moment, her walls slowly crumbling. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Alex replied with a small smile. Over the next few weeks, Emma reluctantly accepted Alex's help. Together, they transformed a tiny storefront into a vibrant shop filled with her handmade crafts. Emma's business began to flourish, attracting customers who were drawn to her artistry and resilience. But the most significant change wasn't in Emma's life, it was in Alex's. One evening, as they stood outside the shop, watching the last of the customers leave, Emma turned to Alex. "You've changed," she said, her voice soft. Alex looked at her, a smile tugging at his lips. "You changed me, Emma. For the better." As their eyes met, the connection between them deepened. For the first time in his life, Alex felt truly at peace.